Everybody hear me okay? Good. I apologize. I had cataract surgery last week at the Cleveland Clinic, so I can't decide. Do I have a good eye? Do I have a bad eye? Can I see? What can I do? I'll do my best to get through the written material, but just good to be out on a sunny day and feel like maybe spring is arriving at Catawba Island. So thank you all for coming together. This is probably our biggest turnout for our annual meeting, and it's a credit to Mary Margaret Laval and our team, Kate Burke, of pulling us together. So thank you all. First of all, my name is Jim Stouffer. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I do want to call the annual meeting of Lake Erie Foundation to order. It is April 21st, and it is just past 3:30 p.m. But good afternoon. I am the president of this wonderful organization, and we thank you all for joining us. For me, it's amazing that in such a short period of time, we've been able to gather the momentum necessary to bring people together who care about Lake Erie in a way that was never done before. And it's gratifying to me that the individuals we work with, the board members, the outside advisors and suppliers, they have done some remarkable things for such a small organization. And I think in the perspective of why do you do things and how do things happen, it motivates us and it inspires us to keep going. Even though we're small, even though we're the smallest group in the room, we seem to have an impact that has resonated with a lot of folks, so that is good. We do have our board members and advisors here today, and we're fortunate enough this year to add two wonderful new additions. Mr. Paul Klein joined us as a new board member, and Dave Ammerine. I didn't see Mr. Ammerine, but Paul, thank you. Lake Erie Living Magazine, you've brought a great perspective to our organization, and thank you for all the help on the lake, and thank you for the help at the boat show. You've helped take our message out in a new and fresh way, which is fantastic. With us today, though, we have our board members, Leah Lexicos, Dave Ammerine, Ken Alvey, Matt Fisher, Larry Fletcher, Rick Graham, Peter Houston, Mr. Paul Klein. John Leppi, unfortunately, came under the weather today. John was not able to join us. Al Nichols, Len Parton, Ron Wiss, and Len Parton. Our advisors, Colleen McDivitt-Hanway is here. Colleen, thank you so much and for all your support that you give us. You set this organization to the next level. John Hall from Toledo, who is one of the most respected engineers in the marine industry and in the environmental world, brings to us a wonderful perspective. And Dr. Sam Mason, who has brought to us the opportunity to discuss plastics in a way that we've never had the opportunity before, but we'll talk about that today. So thank you. We want to appreciate you being here. We also have with us our director, Mary Margaret Laval. Mary Margaret, thank you. You are the nuclear core of this organization. You keep it moving, and you do a fantastic job, so thank you. And we have Kate Burke, who joined us as our development director. We made a decision early on. We're not going to add a lot of bureaucracy, not have a tremendous overhead, but these two fine individuals have brought more to this organization to keep it running, not only day to day, but take our strategic plan, take our mission statement, and really bring it to life. So it's a credit to these two that things are happening the way they are. So we really appreciate that. We do have a strategic plan, and we have a mission. And we decided over the last year to 18 months, we better narrow that down. COVID gave the opportunity to step back and evaluate, what do we do? Who are we? What do we want to accomplish? We cannot do everything. We cannot do anything that doesn't have a purpose that a small organization like ours can fulfill. At the same time, we look for gaps because there's so many groups involved with the lake, so many groups involved with freshwater, ecology, activists, everything else. We knew we had to make sure that we were in a position to fulfill our mission. And to the credit of our board, we came together, put that together, and have really put something that I think is sustainable in action and in motion. As many of you know, obviously the key issues that we're focusing on, the environmental impact study, you've all heard about the icebreaker wind turbines off of Cleveland. We've taken the position we're not in favor of that project, and we've worked hard to understand what it means. We love sustainable energy. We're not against wind energy, solar energy, but that is something that we think needs to stay upland, not out in the lake. And there will be conversations today about our progress there. We also work closely with the state of Ohio. Governor DeWine's H2 Ohio program was really the culmination and fulfillment of a lot of work by Matt Fisher, our COO, and our board, making sure that we had a voice with the legislatures when they were writing that policy. And it was just remarkable to see how our voice was incorporated into that plan. H2 Ohio, we're going to talk about that. We're also, as I mentioned, Dr. Sam Mason, we sincerely believe that plastics is one issue that has to be considered when you think about fresh water, drinking water, the future generations. It's not isolated to Lake Erie. It's not isolated to Ohio, but it is something that has to be considered. Microplastics and these, you've heard these longer term chemicals in the water, they're for real. And nobody just yet understands how it impacts Lake Erie and freshwater. We're fortunate we've got a lot of support from the institutions, the academic side, but plastics, we believe that there should be a voice for Ohioans in how plastics can impact our environment and how it will impact our drinking water for our families. So that's, those three topics are really what you're going to hear today. Again, if you have the opportunity, we always suggest you go to lakeeriefoundation.org. That gives you the opportunity to keep up to date. Again, we've updated our webpage, we've updated the accessibility, and I think the information there is fresh. It also gives you the opportunity at any time, whether you're today at this meeting or call in or you see us, our board members have a tag. We're here today, unlimited amount of time to have a conversation. And in the future, if you'd like, please never hesitate to contact us. When I heard this number, I was really gratified and pleased. We now have 412 members. And you would think we would have thousands of members, but the world is very complex and there's a lot of distraction and static. So when you can take an organization that is really kind of new and have over 400 participants, that to me is a great start. And a credit again to Mary Margaret and to Kate Burke. We had over 453 donations last year, which was, I thought, also very encouraging. But here's the next group that this really kind of, I think, kind of put a stamp on our year. Walmart donated to the Lake Erie Foundation. Walmart evaluated what we were doing, and they are tough. And they looked at what we were trying to accomplish. I commented to a couple folks, we're not out trying to raise money. A lot of organizations, you spend 50% of your time raising money. We're not trying to do that, but we're trying to make sure we can match up our resources with our capabilities so we don't go crazy. But Walmart stepped up and helped us, to their credit. African Lion Safari, the wildlife park here, Bendix, Buckeye Sports Center, Catawba Moorings Marina, Catawba Yacht Sales, another one of our big supporters in the business sector, which I thought was incredibly good. Crown Battery out of Fremont, Hal Hawk and his family, First National Bank of Bellevue, J&J Sales and Service, even our friends at the Roundhouse Bar. They helped us put together the Skip the Straw event. So if you, next time you go in there and have a beverage, give them a little toast. We also had Seagate Transportation Services and also the Spiro Group, which is Ken Spiro and his wife, part of the real estate industry, Howard Hanna. But Ken has been a tremendous help. And Ken, if you think I talk a lot, Ken Spiro talks twice as fast and says twice as many things. And Ken really has spread the gospel. He's been fantastic. True North Wealth Management and the O'Donnell family from Cleveland, the Valley Ford Truck Company. So that was a great, great support for us. And I do want to make a special note of calling out and thanking the Clemens family, Clemens Marina, Clemens Boat Sales. Last year, they donated a boat. Matt Ray was I think it was a Boston Whaler. They raised $17,000 for us through an auction of that boat and donated all the funds to Lake Erie Foundation. And that is, Jason Clemens and his family are fantastic. They've been in the boat industry for 4 generations. They, just tremendous. Those types of gifts, those types of support mean a lot. You can add up the numbers, it makes a difference. But what makes a difference is everybody in this room, everybody who talks to us, everybody who's talking about the lake. That's what makes a difference. We are grassroots. At its core, we're really grassroots. But each board member kind of comes with their own niche. They come with their own niche of background and relationships. We've done a great job, I think, of establishing how that works. So I will now turn it over to Lee Alexakos, who is our secretary, and she will make sure that we're following all the due diligence. Lee?
Thank you, Jim. I just have a little business to conduct here. Per Article 2, Section 2, election and terms of Lake Erie Foundation's Code of Regulations calls for the election of directors. And the directors up for re-election for an additional 2-year terms are Len Parton, Matt Fisher, Al Nichols, Ron Wiss, John Lippi, and Larry Fletcher. I would like to make a motion to approve the renewal of that group of people for an additional 2-year term that will end at the end of 2024. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a second. Thank you very much. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. I was also remiss, I want to thank all of those who could attend today on Zoom. We are in the modern era, so what we say and what we're projecting out into the cyber world makes a difference, and it was one of the ways we sustained ourselves during the COVID, and it's been very effective. So everybody who could join us today, thank you for being here. I would now like to introduce Mr. Ron Wiss, who heads up our foundation. He's the chairman of the Finance Committee. Ron?
Thank you, Jim. I'm here with the Treasurer's Report. The cash balances on December 31, 2020 were $250,652.17. Liabilities at that same date were $4,182.89, consisting of credit card payable and accrued and withheld payroll taxes. During 2021, Lake Erie Foundation applied for and received payroll protection loan of $8,200, which has been forgiven. At December 31, 2021, Lake Erie Foundation had cash balances of $193,283.57. Liabilities at that time were $1,221.48, which were accrued and withheld payroll taxes. Fixed assets remain the same for both years at $7,043. Accumulated depreciation of $4,614 and $5,004 respectively for 20 and 21. Fund balance on December 31, 21 was $258,007. Fund balance at 12/31/20 was $194,490. Operating expenses declined from $156,094 in 2020 to $145,719 in 2021. Decreases in expenses were due to a reduction of $26,000 in legal fees regarding the amicus brief for the wind turbine project, and a decrease of $28,000 for special projects, which also pertain to the icebreaker project. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, very much. At this time, I would like to introduce our Vice President, Matt Fisher. Matt, as many of you may have heard from me in the past, Matt came to us, how many years ago? 5 years ago? When our organization was trying to sort ourselves out. What are we doing? How do we get there? Matt's background with Abbott Labs for many years, he was involved in a labyrinth of chaos, confusion, complexity that was beyond anything I could ever understand. And when he sat down with us and he started to talk about what he could do for us, Matt stepped up and really put us on the course that we're enjoying today. Great success. So Matt, great to have you, and welcome to the board meeting, and I'd like to have you come up and say a few words.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody showing up today. This is the first time I've been in front of this group with an annual meeting, and it's good to see the passion that you have for the lake just like we have. I'm going to kind of repeat some of what Jim said about our strategy, so and it kind of sets up the projects that we work on. We've really gone to great lengths in the last 3 to 4 years to become this professional, well-respected, trusted organization so that we can communicate with the legislators, with scientists, and in the case of what I work on with harmful algal blooms, with the agriculture community. As Jim said, you'll hear a lot of folks that are probably louder than Lake Erie Foundation and might have what some might call an activist tone. And we understand and respect what they're doing, but we've really tried to be the group that brings, I'll say, the two disparate parties together to try to come up with a path forward to solve the issues in the lake. So that's, Jim, I'm just kind of putting it in my words. Jim explained that also, but I just want to make sure you know that we're really trying to help get projects and processes established so we can improve the conditions of the lake. Secondly, as Jim said, I'll just describe the second part is focus. We are small. There's multitude. There's 6 to 10 issues that face Lake Erie. We're focusing on 3 of them. We have positions on the other 5 or 7, but we have 3 that we are focusing, and Jim described what those are. And that has helped us really get a brand that will try to get things done with the lake. So I'm going to talk about the harmful algal blooms first, and then actually John Lippi, who is our expert on icebreaker, is ill, so I'm going to actually read his script, but I might wing some parts from my own perspective. We do support H2 Ohio from all different aspects, from the work that Ohio EPA has done to ODNR. ODNR kind of got a jump on H2 Ohio in the fall of 2019. They have 11,000 acres where they've put wetlands projects in place. We also respect the governor and the Ohio General Assembly for the amount of resources that have been devoted to it in the last 3 years. It's very impressive. For the Department of Agriculture, we've had 40% of the acres sign up for H2 Ohio. So that is a significant number. We did lose the COVID year, 2020. No practices were implemented. But 40% of the farmers really shows there is a level of passion out in the Northwest Ohio to try to improve the condition of the lake. We did have some issues with rain in the fall that not all 40% received some type of management practice to improve or decrease the amount of phosphorus that runs off the lake. But again, we're encouraged that we have that type of participation. So with that said, the practices, I'm going to focus on agriculture now, the practices that are in H2 Ohio are the correct practices for reducing phosphorus runoff. But there's 3, what I'll call pretty significant parts that we are worried that will cause H2 Ohio not to be as effective. So the first one is really, it's a good amount of dollars, a good amount of resources, but it's just being spread over too many acres in Northwest Ohio. So I'll tell you in a minute how we are addressing that. The second one is there's no points where water quality is actually being measured. So again, Jim alluded to my background, but we've all been involved in some type of part of our job where you're being measured for your performance. So we have a lot of practices out there, but we're not measuring the water quality impact after a year, after 2 years. So that is actually one of the drawbacks of H2 Ohio that we're trying to have some focus given to. And finally, H2 Ohio for agriculture is 100% voluntary. And that doesn't mean that the people who volunteered have the least polluted fields or the most polluted fields, but it just means we don't know. And so what we've led for the last 3 years is a program called a pilot program, which a lot of you may know what that is as soon as I use those words. But what pilot program would mean for improving Lake Erie and for these agriculture practices is we have a much more significant, focused sub-watershed, and that watershed would get more resources so that practices could be implemented quicker. Implementing practices in Northwest Ohio is going to take 4 or 5 years to get through all of Northwest Ohio. We're taking about a 6-month time period. We've identified a field, a sub-watershed about 25 miles west of Upper Sandusky called Shallow Run, and we worked with Ohio State. We're going to try to take we're in the process right now of taking the number of farms that implement practices from about 20 or 15% now up to about 75%. So that by the end of 2022, 75% of the fields would have practices that reduce phosphorus runoff. And we also would be measuring water quality at the end of the year and end of 23 and end of 24. And we've chosen a watershed that has 3 to 4 years of history. And we also have a control watershed that's about 10 miles away called Potato Run. So that we actually worked with the Ohio legislature to get this built into H2 Ohio in the summer of 2021. So we're kind of proud of that. We are not the managers of that right now. I have nothing to do with the day-to-day management of that. A good colleague of ours from Ohio State, Dr. Jay Martin, is actually running that program. But I don't mean this in an arrogant way. I mean this in a proud way. This pilot program would not have taken place had we not taken the lead to work with our contacts in the Ohio legislature to make this happen. So that'll give us water quality, but it's also going to water quality improvement, which practices work, which ones don't work. But it's also going to give us an idea how much it's going to cost to roll this out through all of Northwest Ohio. So that's that program. Oh, and if you are a subscriber to the Toledo Blade, Tom Henry from the Blade put in an outstanding article on this pilot watershed on March 26th. So if you Google, and the name of it was, "Does H2 Ohio Work?" Which that's very good, aggressive tone, but it actually did lay out very clearly what this program is, and gave some credit to us in the end. But it actually is a significant part. But the whole theme here is that we're going to find out within 12 months if these practices work, which ones are most effective. So I've kind of alluded to this before, but I don't think I've said it quite as clearly, that we do believe that there's a small number of acres that are responsible for most of the phosphorus runoff, which leads to most of the blooms that form. And we do believe that there's more that we all can do to help farmers manage their manure. And we are working with a group out of Findlay called Barger Tech that actually has technology that processes manure and turns it into valuable byproducts like commercial fertilizer, like carbon, fuel, and water. And we are trying to help them find what we'd call a demonstration unit that would cost a couple $1 million, that would show these significant outfits that could fund this when they expand by county to show that it works. And I don't want to be cynical and say sometimes that things that are too good to be true are too good to be true, but at the same time, this is a game changer. If this actually works, farmers need help managing their manure. We don't want to say nasty comments about the animal farmers. They're following the regulations for most part, but they need help. A lot of times they have more animals than they do acres to spread their manure, and this is a technology that, stay tuned, if you would Google Barger Tech, you will be very impressed with their webpage. It's got a lot of information. Doesn't tell the secret of their technology, but it certainly does explain that they're counting on manure, and actually would help with wastewater treatment plants also in converting the byproducts into something valuable. So finally, for harmful algal blooms, the recipe, as you know, is for blooms to form out in the western basin, and then they move to the central basin, and they create not healthy water in front of the Cleveland area, is big rains in April and May after planting season, and then a couple high heat days in June or sometimes July. We've been lucky the last few years because there have been dynamics that recipe did not work. Sometimes it rained so much in the spring that the crops weren't actually even planted. So just kind of stay tuned. There's also, through our website, you can also find the NOAA page that comes out probably by June 1 that gives a weekly forecast on estimating how big the bloom will be. But I've talked to Chris Winslow, who's from Ohio State, and he said they really don't have a good idea what the bloom would be like until you get to July to know what kind of heat, what kind of, how much phosphorus is in the water. So we do believe that there can be clean water and profitable farming, and that would be our mantra that we've held on how we approach harmful algal blooms. We're working with a lot of the groups and the appropriate projects to try to make this happen. Okay, so thank you. That is for the harmful algal blooms. I'm going to do give the John Lippi talk. Do you mind if I just blend into, or do you want to reintroduce me for? Okay, so This one I'm going to be a little even more choppy than the last one. How many people really have heard of the Icebreaker project of wind turbines in front of Cleveland? So what I have found is that we come across as an environmental group, and when we will be in front of a group of people, I'll speak for my son and my kids. They say, why are you against wind energy? And we are not against wind energy. We are very much for alternate forms of energy. But my business card says Lake Erie Foundation, and this is a wind farm that would be built 6 to 8 miles off of Cleveland. And if anybody ever tells you that you would not be able to see it, when we're done here, go look at Davis-Besse. Davis-Besse is 11 miles away. And ironically, I can get a little bit carried away with small facts, Davis-Besse is the same height that those wind turbines are that would be in front of Cleveland. That's 11 miles away. You can see, I think, 7/8. I think I can see the ground of Davis-Besse sometimes. So, again, not trying to get too carried away with the semantics, but you will be able to see them in front of Cleveland. And the plan now, Icebreaker project, is for 6 wind turbines, but the ultimate plan is to put 1,500 in front of Cleveland. 1,500, just a quarter mile apart, takes up 75 square miles. So you'd be creating a 75 square mile in front of Cleveland that would be there for my lifetime. And in 25 years later, it would have to be taken down. The lifespan of these is 25 to 30 years. So if you ever need explanation as to why we're not in favor of that, those are a couple of the reasons. So I'm going to read through what John wrote for this, and I kind of had to just start this off with my bias on that project. So as we said, this is going to be the developers. It's called Leadco, and Fred Olsen is a multinational company from out of Norway, and their intention is to build as close to 1,400 wind turbines as possible by the year 2030. The issue is that the Icebreaker's developers have been allowed to bypass environmental studies that are critical to understanding the long-term impacts on the millions of birds which migrate across Lake Erie and on the lake's walleye and perch population. The in-depth study that has been bypassed is called an environmental impact study. It's also important that we know what happens when you lay the cables down on the floor and how you disrupt that already questionable bottom of Lake Erie in front of Cleveland, and what happens to what surfaces there. And again, we support clean energy. We support wind turbines. We support solar. We just don't want to put it in front of Cleveland, Ohio. So in the fall of 2020, we actually came out with a campaign, and this is where we learned a lot of what people's initial reactions are about Icebreaker. We were trying to teach people about that project. We ran print ads in cranes. We had an informational video to inform the public of the facts of the project. We had a PowerPoint that we were using with different legislators. And our goal was to educate folks about what this project was really all about. There's 3 key parts to this. I've talked about 2 of them. The other is this project is incredibly expensive, just for the 6 wind turbines. It is a very expensive project to have installed. So, in addition to our marketing campaign, we did file, and Jim alluded to this a few minutes ago, an amicus brief in the U.S. federal courts against the U.S. Department of Energy and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Our brief supports the lawsuit filed by the American Bird Conservancy and Black Swamp Bird Observatory against those federal agencies. And this lawsuit has been accepted by the federal court and continues to move its way through the judicial system. So we're hopeful that at the very minimum, this environmental impact study will be required before the project goes forward. So now to fast forward to the fall of 2021, just 5 or 6 months ago, we heard that Leadco was looking for between $35 and $40 million to complete the project. So they were going to the Ohio General Assembly to work with key leaders to try to get those funds. To make a long story short, a lot of the key leaders that they worked with, we already had relations with our work on harmful algal blooms. So we talked to some of those key folks. We gave good handout on explaining how expensive the project was, the need for an environmental impact study, and the impact of aesthetics on the lake. And it actually did get voted down by the General Assembly. So That was, that doesn't mean the project's done. What that means is state money will not be used in the next 12 months for, I'll say, moving that project further along. So with that said, we give updates on that project as often as we hear them on our website. And I hope you understand what our role is on trying to keep this project from being in Lake Erie. With that, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We are going to, after we wrap up, we're going to have an opportunity for questions or any comments someone would like to make. So we'll get to that point in just a couple minutes. But in the meantime, I would like to introduce and have the opportunity for you to hear from Kate Burke. She is someone who has added, as I mentioned, a great dimension to our organization. Again, we reach out to folks. We're at the boat shows. We're at the different events. We have a plastics cleanup. We have booths at different things around northern Ohio along the lake. But it's an opportunity Kate brought to us to really be a very disciplined and very organized entity. And working closely with Mary Margaret, she has helped us to make sure that your support and the support of many others is handled appropriately and is managed carefully between our annual review audit, between the different communication with those who have donated money. It's just part of being a long-term foundation. My job, my goal, is for this organization to live far beyond my time. To do that, you've got to put some good foundation in the ground. Mary Margaret's done an exceptional job with that. Kate Burke adds a dimension that I think we are very proud of. So, Kate, could you please come up and say a couple words? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Those are very nice words, and I'm very excited to be part of the team here with Lake Erie Foundation. So, good afternoon, and thank you for attending today, and more importantly, for supporting our work. Members and donors are critical to the success of our mission. And as you've heard from Jim and Matt, there's a lot that has been accomplished, but there's a lot more work to be done. So we're excited to announce our first fundraiser. It is Celebrate the Lake, because there's many things to celebrate about Lake Erie. And that is scheduled for August 26th. It'll be right here at the Catawba Island Club. It will be a time for you to mingle with other members and donors, supporters, our board members. And it's a long time coming after COVID, which has kind of kept us in our houses and away from meeting other people. We'll have some more updates on the legislative works and highlights from these projects that you heard about today. We promise that the evening will both be informational and fun, and what a wonderful way to spend a summer evening than here at Catawba Island in the tent. So there's information on the table back there about being a sponsor, about getting tickets, and I do want to give a quick shout out to our first set of sponsors that have already supported this event: Barrio Restaurants, World Shipping, and now Firelands Hospital. So thank you to those sponsors for supporting this event. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me at any time if you have questions about your donations, your memberships, business sponsorships, whatever. I'll be happy to answer, and my contact information is back there. So again, thank you. I'm excited to be a part of this team.
Thank you, Kate. So, Matt, I would say we open up the floor for any questions, and depending on how they're directed, we may call upon a board member to answer a question. Lenny, are you ready? Just in case I've got a couple questions for you. Anybody have any thoughts or anything you would like to share? Any questions you might have? Ladies first.
Thank you. We've got a boat. Before COVID, we were going over to Leamington at least once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe more. And I'm not exactly where I saw them, but I remember seeing the turbines out in the lake somewhere out there. And you can see them a long, long ways away. And the other thing I'd be concerned about is people running into them. You know, they're sitting out in the middle there.
Yeah. Well, Canada has, we did some research. Canada has over 40 wind farms throughout their country.
Right.
And they've actually done a really nice job in certain locations of bringing that to life in a way that's positive. but they actually put in place, I believe, a moratorium on building wind turbines in Lake Erie. They brought it right to the shore and they said, well, geez, we have unobstructed conditions, let's move it offshore. They said, whoa, the impact of this could be devastating long-term, and we don't know. So in fact, they stopped going into the water, even though you can see them, and that's unbelievable. In fact, on your side, on north side of Middle Bass, you see the wind turbines from there. So in fact, these turbines, which are very sophisticated now, and one of the reasons we're involved is the wind energy industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. Private capital investment. There's a lot of different strategies why you would want to invest in a wind turbine or wind turbine farm. And in some applications, they work extremely well. On Lake Erie, the bird issue for us was really a compelling reason to question that strategy. The disruption to the lake bottom, what it could mean to the sediment, and there are already issues of latent legacy phosphorus on the bottom of the lake, of stirring that up. And to Matt's point, how did we arrive at 1,450 turbines, 1,500 turbines? It didn't say it. But when you looked at their goal of how many kilowatts they wanted to generate, they basically took the number of a turbine today, and they would build a sophisticated turbine over 600 feet tall, divide that into that goal, and you came up with 1,454 turbines or something. When questioned about it, there was really never a clear, or I would call, honest answer, which immediately put us on edge because we wondered, what's going on here? So if I'm a Clevelander, I grew up on the west side, and 6 turbines might not make a big difference in terms of the aesthetics.
Right.
Those 6 turbines might be very effective in determining certain things. Right now, they do not have an environmental impact study. They have an environmental impact assessment they've discussed, which is kind of like going in and not really getting a thorough checkup with your doctor. You haven't looked at everything clearly. But when you start to extrapolate that out, not only do you have that 75 square mile forest, but you're also stretching westward because you'll be looking for different grid connections along the shores of Lake Erie. And those grid connections are in front of Westlake and Bay Village and Avon and further until we're right maybe on the border of Kelly's Island or Sandusky or Huron. So the ergonomics of this project are unbelievable when you start to study them. I've spent time out west throughout my life. So when I drive out west and I see the turbines in Texas, I just drove through Texas twice this winter specifically to look at wind turbine farms in Springwater, in Amarillo, and out in Midland, Odessa. So I stopped along the side of the road, and I had my camera, and I spun around and almost fell down through the disorientation. And then I went back and researched, and they said, oh, there's only 350 turbines here, not 1,450. The magnitude of 1,450 wind turbines would be unbelievable to the impact of the lake. And we don't know the impact on fishing. We don't know the impact on the sediment. We don't know the impact on a lot of things. We know it was just announced 2 weeks ago there was a settlement out west with a wind turbine company that settled for millions of dollars because they actually killed bald eagles and golden eagles. Now, they fought that for years and said, it's not us. They finally said, it was us. And by the way, here are all the carcasses, and here's all the studies, and it actually killed the birds. But we'll pay our fee and we'll go on.
What
And
do
then,
you know about Goderich? Because I know they got a big wind farm
Yeah.
there.
so we're risking a lot. And this risk is not my risk. As we said, Matt said, these will outlive us. But it's the risk our children and grandchildren and the next generations. We've said it before, Lake Erie is our Grand Canyon. Lake Erie is our crown jewel. It's been stated many times. We cannot lose the lake to put wind energy front and center. So the economics are tough, the environmental side of it's tough, and the impact on nature is tough. So it's a fight, it's an argument, it's a debate. We're not going to give up. We're going to continue to have a voice in that game.
Jim?
Mr. Amrine.
I'm not going to comment on the efficacy of wind turbines as a source of electricity. I'll follow Matt's cue. The one thing that should be mentioned is that project and the resultant expansion of that project will have a tremendous cost on the Cleveland area ratepayers, but also on the Ohio taxpayers.
Yes.
That should not go unmentioned.
Exactly. There are those who will argue, well, for those who can least afford electricity, sewer, water, beer, cigarettes, right? The sin taxes. Our electricity has been proven around the world. The cost of wind energy ultimately on a kilowatt basis goes up dramatically, let alone the environmental and ecological impact. So yes, and somebody's going to pay for it in some fashion.
One word in the generation of electricity is the word reliable.
Right.
Now, if the wind only blows 28% of the time, and it has to be between a certain low level and a certain high level, or you have to lock the wind turbines out. Same with solar panels, 28% of the time in northern Ohio. Something has to make up that other 72% of the time, and what it is quick responding fossil fuel generators.
As they say, the full package of sources for power and energy are probably the key to our success, and wind turbines are a tough one to fit in consistently. Matt?
So Dave's 100% right. The cost ongoing for this is astronomical and it's rarely talked about, but I alluded to the cost of the project. Just so you know that there's a wind farm in Buffalo. If you've ever been down that end, there's actually a similar amount of megawatts where there's 14 wind turbines there, but the 6 would be in front of Cleveland the same. That costs $32 million to build in 2014 or 15. This is going to cost $175 million to build 6 wind turbines. The difference between being in the water. So again, somebody's got to pay for that, and that's why we didn't want it to be the state of Ohio. And I also, to his point, I raced sailboats, and they estimated that the average wind velocity in August in Lake Erie is like 18 miles an hour, and I'm here to tell you, it doesn't blow that hard in August in Lake Erie. Maybe in April it does, not now.
Rick, you had a quick question or a quick comment?
Statement I want to make. The Canadian moratorium was a result of the economic impact to businesses, residential, and industrial users of the electric. And they have lots of wind farms along the north area of Lake Erie, not on Lake Erie, but on the land. You drive between Windsor and London, Ontario, you'll see about 3 or 4 of them. In some cases, they almost seem like it's continuous all the way along. But anyhow, the reality was, the real kickback was, they were making their businesses and the commercial operations as well as the residential company pay way too much, and it was putting them out of business.
Driving them out in the country. Yes. Yes, sir.
Did I understand that the state of New York is approved to put wind farms in the Lake Erie on their area?
I think I've read some articles to the effect that the state of New York does a lot of unique things. And I think, you know, again, these movements have an inertia that starts somewhere, and the leadership sometimes loses control of it. I think New York, which does not bring in a balance of energy to their end users in many respects, with base load power, they have a lot of hydro in New York. We don't have in Ohio necessarily, but yes, I do believe that they have pushed it, and whether the time is right or the politics are right for whatever reason. Now, I don't know what their project status is, but we respect their rights. We certainly respect Lake Erie. We can't go across the border, but they will make their minds up. Every time somebody does something, we try to learn from that. And if we find out what their ratepayers pay, what the cost of the project is, what is the actual impact, the facts are usually pretty available, and we pay attention to those things. And that's a great thing. And if Google up information, we get a lot of data that we can use to, again, help make our point to Ohio legislators and leaders and community members. Yes, sir.
I guess 2 things. One on that, there was an article just this week in New York, offshore, in one of the very luxury areas, the Hamptons or whatever, that they have a project that's ready to go. They've already got equipment on the ground. They're just waiting for a final approval to put a cable under the street.
Right.
That would be on the ocean.
You've got Nantucket, you've got Block Island, you've got offshore, East and West Coast, and down in the Gulf. I mean, again, a lot of these communities are enthused because the federal government has said, hey, we're going to give you billions and billions of dollars. And the trickle down to all the different industries and manufacturers is substantial.
Great for the
it ultimately, one would wonder, where does that benefit ultimately accrue? And it would go to those who would be the investors, we, the ratepayer, and we who have to live with that legacy asset. You know, when they bury a wind turbine blade, and they have to bury them, can't burn them, right? They can't grind them. They take them out and they bury them. Well, that ultimately is going to have an impact somehow, some way in the future. And it's, you know, again, well-intentioned, but the execution is proven around the world that it has some limitations. Problem is, once you've done it, once you put it off the shore of Cleveland and move westward, it's not going to get resolved for decades, if ever.
You mentioned three key things: the aesthetics, the cost, and the environmental study. Sounds like, you know, we're putting a lot of hope into the environmental study. What's the likelihood that that will turn up something that could stop this? Not just slow it, but stop the process.
I can't answer that. All I know is when they said, we've talked to all these groups and they support us, the Sierra Club and others, we said, but you haven't done an environmental impact study, which is required by, it's called NEPA, it's a national environmental program. And our lawyers said, you know, they really haven't done the due diligence. They haven't done the heavy lifting to ensure that this will work successfully. And that's why the court, in the district court in Washington, accepted the lawsuit. Black Swamp said, we care about the birds. We came in and said, we care about the economics and the viability of this long-term and its impact on Lake Erie. And the judge, who has not ruled yet and may not rule for some time, said, you know, that's a pretty compelling argument. Thank you. And that's why we spent all that money, Ron, right? You know, quite a bit of funding, but we were shocked when the judge accepted our amicus brief. It was quite a statement, I think. Any other questions? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I'd like to say something. Last winter, my sister lives in San Antonio, Texas.
Yes.
And they got a freeze out there, and they didn't have any electricity. Off of windmills, they had no electricity for a week. Everything froze up. They had an ice storm.
We have close friends in Texas, and we actually, the big ice storm in February, my wife and I were caught in that just north of San Antonio. And there were 400 semis parked in the mountains, and everything came to a halt. Yes, the long-term impact in supply, we need a balanced portfolio, and God bless, we're doing better, okay? Let's lower the carbon, let's lower the coal. I don't think there's anybody in this room that would argue with that.
The only one getting around in town because she had 2 gas cars. Everybody else had Teslas. They all called it.
It's sometimes it's fun to watch. Any other comments or questions,
I do have one.
Mr. Baranowski?
If we can shift the conversation to algae for just a second.
Absolutely.
I understand, at least I believe I understand our position relative to algae and what we're doing with the state of Ohio.
Yes.
What's our position with neighboring states, Indiana, Michigan, because obviously they're contributors also?
We had the opportunity, we were on a symposium panel in Fort Wayne, I think it was last September. And it was quite heartening because Indiana invited Ohio in, brought in an Ohio Sea Grant. There were 2 key players there, Chris Winslow, who heads up the Ohio State Research Facility. You had Farm Bureau, Jeff Reuter, former head of Sea Grant. And we had Rich Badiak. Rich is one of the former directors of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, which is a 200,000 member, $20 million a year Chesapeake Bay Water Conservancy Group. They are the godfather of our efforts. We have created a relationship with them, so we're learning what did they go through to save the Chesapeake Bay. And that watershed stretches all the way up into Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, Virginia, all of the states that flow down through the Chesapeake Bay, which basically was the petri dish of the loss of aquatic vegetation, clams, crabs. I mean, their whole watershed was falling apart. That group said, enough is enough. Let's get together. Let's work this out. So to some extent, we learned how to structure the organization and structure the mission. Indiana brought this group together and said, tell us more. Indiana puts in how much to the Maumee watershed? About 28%.
That's
So,
significant,
right.
and it comes
Maumee River, 4.1 million acres in their watershed. While the Detroit River clearly is the biggest inflow to Lake Erie, the Maumee River is the biggest phosphorus loader because of, let's state it for what it is, one of the greatest farming regions in the world, which is fantastic. But the impact of that is that it's going to flow into Lake Erie, which is the warmest, the shallowest, the most nutritious body of fresh water. Combine that with phosphorus and you get algal blooms. So what Matt referred to in particular was we go into these conversations not to say you're wrong and we're right. We're going in and saying, what do you need? What can we do to help you get the solutions you need to control the inputs? This group out of Findlay, Bargertech, what's fascinating about them versus all these other companies that have come in and said, well, we'll do biodigesters and we'll pump oxygen and air and we'll filter this out. We'll add some chemicals to it to get it to settle out like on Grand Lake St. Mary's. They actually take the phosphorus, they take this sludge, they take this material, and they're able to take manure, wastewater treatment sludge, biomass, other items that could impact the lake, and it processes it into a stack or a series of commodities. Those commodities can be used, they can be reused, they can be sold, they can be broken down so that it turns the farmer's effort into an economic success. If the farmers are successful, Ohio and Indiana and all these states can benefit because they are the most successful industries in many cases, or one of the most successful industries in that state. Think of everything that relates in Ohio to farming. And the family businesses, the legacy, the hard work. I mean, they're up before me, and a lot of times they're going to bed after me. And I'm in the food business. So being in the food business, you want to understand how that fits. In our case, we want the farmers to be incredibly successful. We want food to be economical, available, nutritious. So you have to work and say, putting them out of business doesn't help anybody, but working with them to help find solutions is a just calling. And we've had conversations with the Walmarts, the Krogers. You know, we're talking about the total linear process that takes to have successful ag and clean water. The states around us, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Canada, go across the lake. We've got this magnificent freshwater resource throughout this region, which will sustain our industries for centuries. We can't blow it up, but how do we work together to make it happen? And there are really good people working on it. Matt and Ron, in particular, myself, we've gotten beaten up a few times over the conversations we've had, but then you realize, no, wait a minute, this has to work. There's no giving up because you have to find success and then convert it to long-term sustainability.
I was just wondering, I know you spend a lot of money, politicking, talking to politicians, legislators. Are you doing much to reach the people?
That's a good question. That's a good question. The comment in our strategic plan was we need to be more grassroots. And that takes time, that takes a lot of energy. All of our board members have either day jobs or they have families or they have other obligations. And so that's why we hired 2 professionals to help with this organization. As the opportunities come up, we will bring more people to the organization, help spread the word. Grassroots is tough. It takes time, it's expensive, and sometimes you don't get an immediate payback, so you're kind of sitting there asking yourself, did that work? I've been doing this now for over a decade, and I always laugh because Sandy Bin, one of my great friends, helped start the Lake Erie Improvement Association. She has had a water keepers. She said, let's get together for a meeting. 3 hours later, I came out as president of the organization. And I said, Sandy, you just hooked me. But to her credit, and to the credit of a lot of others, and you'll hear voices, we don't disagree with what they're doing, but what we found was the door would close, things would stop, the conversation would end, and people would just go on about their lives. So when they say that we are talking to legislators, we're doing so trying to understand their sensibilities and trying to develop a strategy that gets things done. And in the state of Ohio, there have been some great people helping. Rob Portman, Marcy Captors helped us. We're really agnostic. We don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. Our question is, how can you help impact this positively? And we've been very, very respectful. Mutual respect is the way I do business. It's the way I was raised. And that's the way this organization handles itself, carries itself. Now, when you have to push a little bit, or if you have to call somebody out, you do so. You have to do so. We've done it. We've sent a few letters out, made a few statements that have gotten things ruffled up, but we know how to do it, I think. And that's why this board is so fun to work with. They are solution-based, and they're respectful, and we get it done. And we're going to keep doing it as long as we can to make things better, help people do things better.
You said that you had a booth at the boat show?
Yes.
I was there, but I didn't see you, but that doesn't mean anything. It's a big show.
I was in the booth next door because we had our business was there, and Len Parton and our team and Kayleen and everybody was there. They worked it beautifully. They did a nice job. I want to thank everybody for your time, your commitment. Again, this meeting won't solve every problem or answer every question, but we are dedicated to doing what's necessary to make our mission successful. And it's exciting for me because while I enjoy doing this, I enjoy the people even more. And it's the relationships going forward and what we can do to help all of you accomplish your goals for your families. That to me is the most satisfying moment. So thank you for your time, your energy, and your support. And we look forward to working with you in the coming year. Thank you.